for us. Well battled. You're up.
Cuphead is a run-and-gun platformer that came out on the 29th of September 2017. The game was extremely successful early on, and reached 1 million sales only 2 weeks after its initial release. The game has obviously been out for a while now, but I only recently beat the game, and so I thought that I could make a video reviewing the game and detailing my general thoughts. Cuphead was developed by a very small team called Studio MDHR. The team was started by two brothers, Chad and Jared Moldenhauer. Cuphead began development all the way back in 2010, and was due to be released in 2015, but was delayed until 2016, and then further delayed to 2017. This sparked a huge amount of anticipation, and many people were excited about the game. Despite Studio MDHR being a very small team, they didn't cut any corners with how the game looks. The style of Cuphead is what made it so popular. Inspired by old 1930s cartoons created by animation companies like Disney and Fleischer Studios, Chad and Jared Moldenhauer decided to use the rubber hose technique in Cuphead's animation. This is when characters' body parts can bend and contort in ways that humans can't, almost as if the characters are made of rubber. Felix the Cat is one of the earliest known characters animated with the rubber hose technique, and was seen all the way back in 1919, over 100 years ago. As well as the rubber hose technique, Cuphead uses other traditional animation processes. Every single character is hand-drawn and hand-animated, and then digitally colorized. Hundreds of frames have to be used just for one boss. All the backgrounds and foreground are painted with watercolor, and any 3D models used in the backgrounds are made by hand. This attention to the finer details shows the amount of effort and time that Studio MDHR put into the game. While Studio MDHR originally intended Cuphead to be a game with only 8 bosses, they received backlash and later decided to add 11 more bosses and 6 run-and-gun levels. The boss battles are relatively short, at around 2 minutes per boss, and usually test the player's reflexes and endurance, whereas the run-and-gun levels are platforming levels, where you have to get to the other side while enemies constantly try to kill you. There are 2 types of boss battles, platforming fights and aviary fights, where you control a plane. When you're in the plane, you can press Y to turn smaller. You move faster, which makes it easier to dodge difficult attacks. The bad part about turning small is that your bullets become almost completely useless. When you're in the plane, you have 2 types of shots that you can use. Either straight bullets that fire horizontally, or bombs that drop downwards when shot. Most of the time, you'll only need to use the normal bullets. However, certain bosses require the bombs, such as Woolly Warbles. Personally, I prefer aviary fights over platforming fights because I think they allow more freedom with dodging attacks. The platforming boss fights are the most common in the game though, and usually consist of the main boss staying still and using smaller enemies and attacks for you to avoid. Before a boss fight, you get to choose 2 shots that you will use during the battle. There are 6 shots in total. The pea shooter, which is the shot that you start with, deals average damage but only shoots straight on, meaning you have to make sure that you're aiming correctly. The second shot is a spread shot. This is sort of like a shotgun and consists of 5 bullets that spread out but don't travel far. This shot is best used in running gun levels. The third shot is the chaser. This is the weakest of all 6. It deals below average damage, but homes in on enemies. One big downside is that you can't control where the bullets go. This means that sometimes you'll miss the enemy you're actually trying to hit. Because of this, I rarely used the chaser throughout my playthrough. The fourth shot is the lobber. This shot is similar to the bombs used in aviary fights, as you shoot purple balls that travel downwards after a short time. They bounce twice before disappearing. This shot is one of the best though, as it does above average damage. The fifth shot is charge. To use this shot effectively, you must hold down shoot until it charges up and then release the shoot button to fire it. You can shoot it when it isn't charged, but this does a small amount of damage. The final shot is called roundabout. This is my favourite shot and it does above average damage. This shot is like a boomerang, and when fired it travels a short distance forward before travelling the opposite way it was fired rapidly. I would recommend getting lobber and roundabout as your first 2 shots, as these do the most damage and are the 2 best in my opinion. Down at the bottom of the screen, you can see a set of cards. When you get a full card, you can use the EX attack of whatever shot you're using. EX attacks are just bigger, more damaging versions of the shot that you're using. You can also purchase charms from the shop. Charms are like extra abilities that you can use. Just like the shots, there are 6 of them. Coffee, which slowly increases your super meter at the bottom. Smoke Bomb, which allows you to become invincible during your dash. Heart, which gives the player an extra heart but weakens your attack damage. Twin Heart, which gives you 2 extra hearts but weakens the damage even more. Whetstone, which turns your parry into an axe which deals damage. And finally, Pea Sugar, which makes your first parry automatic. Charms and shops are purchased using gold coins. These coins can be collected in all the running gun levels. Some gold coins are really difficult to get though, and I think this is because the running gun levels don't flow very well. To me it feels like the developers just threw a bunch of enemies at you. However, while I think the running gun levels could be improved on, I think they were a good addition. This is because they switch up the gameplay from just boss battles. Most bosses attack in the same order every time, although there are times when RNG comes into play. RNG has a big effect on whether the boss is easy or not. In Cuphead, you only get 3 lives by default, and there aren't any ways to increase your health during a fight. This means that if you get unlucky with boss patterns, you have no choice but to get hit. Cuphead is already difficult enough, but this makes the game even more infuriating. One of the best examples of a boss being easy or difficult depending on RNG is Grim Matchstick. This boss is a dragon that shoots fireballs and rings at you in his first stage. You'll notice that the cloud platforms move towards Cuphead, and that they are completely random. This means that sometimes you'll get stuck in a position where you can't move and must take a hit. This is part of the reason why Grim Matchstick is so difficult. RNG isn't a bad thing in games if it's done correctly. However, in Cuphead it's not done well. It makes an already difficult game even harder. While the luck factor in certain bosses in Cuphead is annoying, most bosses are very fair. I think a lot of time and effort was put into each boss battle, as they're all very unique and you get a great sense of achievement whenever you beat one. While some bosses in Cuphead are incredibly difficult, I never moved on to another boss if I died. It may be due to the progress bar showing how tantalizingly close you were to victory when you die, or that when you beat a boss you're given a final grade which makes you want to do better. You always want to keep going, and the game keeps pushing you to succeed. There were times when I would try and fail over and over to beat a boss, and I thought that it was impossible, and then when I finally beat the boss, it was amazing. In general, I feel like most bosses in Cuphead are perfectly designed for the stage that you're playing. The first couple of bosses don't require much parrying or dodging, and as you progress throughout the game, the challenge increases at a good pace. The only bosses I would say differ from this are Hildeberg and Werner Vermin. This is because I think that Hildeberg is far more difficult than all other Inkwell Isle 1 bosses, and Werner Vermin is honestly one of the easiest bosses in my opinion. Since it's in Inkwell Isle 3, you already have a lot of experience with the game, and so Werner's attacks are easily avoidable. To sum up this review, I want to first say that I think what Studio NDHR have done is incredible, and I think that it's amazing how they've managed to create an original game using classic cartoon art styles from the 30s. For me, the game is definitely amongst the top 5 games I've ever played. However, it's not perfect. There are a few things that I think could be improved, the first of which is the parry system. Parrying is difficult to get the hang of at first, and can be quite an issue. This is because if you miss your parry, you get hit, which can make it feel like parrying is more effort than it's worth. Although, parrying does become easier as you do it more. Another thing that I think almost breaks the game because of how good it is the Smoke Bomb. This charm grants the ability to become invincible during a dash. This essentially means that you can go right through attacks without any consequences. It makes almost every boss much easier to beat and is far too powerful. A third thing I would add is a better way to judge the shots, as the only thing it gives you is a vague description which doesn't really tell you enough about the weapon. One minor thing I would also add is the option to change your weapons or charms during a boss battle. Sometimes I forget to pick the right shots and end up dying because of it. Although these are all negatives, I don't think the game is bad. I just think there are a few small details that could be fixed. Overall, I think Cuphead is an amazing game, and the developers tried something that had never been done before, and they did it well. If you can, I'd definitely start playing Cuphead if you haven't already. Also, if you want to check out any of my other videos, feel free. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.